I'm just speaking this part. We'll try not to take all the mayor's podium space here with our notes. All right. Good to see you.
I want to open, first of all, with a lot of thank yous. Thank you to our City Council. We have Councilwoman Tammy Ward and Jane Raybould with us here today. Thank you to Chief Blymeister and Captain Stilley and all the folks at the Lincoln Police Department. Chief Jackson is here with us today. Our folks at Public Health, including our Interim Director, Pat Lopez, and our staff member, Brian Baker. The Lancaster County Sheriff's Office and Deputy Chief Todd Duncan is here. And, of course, the Suicide Prevention Coalition and members of the Task Force on Preventing Child Access to Firearms and the Safe Storage. Thank you for all of your efforts and what you've done to make this day happen. This diverse group has come together to advance gun violence prevention in our community. Gun violence is a serious problem in America. Across our country, we have witnessed shootings, both accidental and intentional, that have cut short too many lives. We've watched in horror as tragedy upon tragedy has robbed too many children and adults of their futures. We have seen active shooter drills and lockdowns become routine in our workplaces, our houses of worship, and in our children's schools. Today, we are announcing steps that we will take to help prevent gun violence here in Lincoln, steps that will limit access to firearms by children and by those who are a danger to themselves or to others. We acknowledge, of course, that preventing gun violence is a complex undertaking, one that requires efforts throughout our communities and at every level of government. We at the city are committed to doing our part. To that end, we propose a multifaceted approach that will move the needle in the right direction. New legislation has recently been introduced at the City Council. It's improving city ordinances related to firearm storage and firearm theft reporting. This administration supports both of these measures, and we are hopeful that that legislation will make its way to my desk in the coming weeks. In response to the recommendations of the Child Access to Firearms and Safe Storage Task Force, we have developed a plan that will help protect residents and keep our children safe. First, we are moving forward with efforts to improve gun safety in our community by offering free gun locks for permit applicants in partnership with the Lincoln Lancaster County Suicide Prevention Coalition and the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to invite Chief Deputy Todd Duncan now to come say a few words about this program.
Thank you, Mayor. And first, I just want to thank the Mayor's Office for inviting the Sheriff's Office to be part of this very important conversation. I also want to just recognize the efforts of Lincoln Police Department Captain Jason Stilley, who served as the chair on this task force. He did a fantastic job guiding the research and facilitating conversations between task force members. I'm pleased to announce that the Sheriff's Office is partnering with the Lincoln and Lancaster County Suicide Prevention Coalition to implement one of the strategies that was discussed by the task force by offering free gun locks to the public at our front main reception counter at the courthouse. And the Sheriff's Office, for those of you who don't know, we handle all the handgun purchase certificate applications for Lincoln and Lancaster County at our office, and we process about 3,300 permits a year. So as part of that process, we'll be offering free gun locks in partnership with the Suicide Prevention Coalition. So there you go. Thank you, Mayor.
We also believe strongly in public education efforts. Representatives from the Lincoln Police Department, our Health Department, Emergency Management, and City Communications Specialists, along with Bryan Health, Nebraskans Against Gun Violence, and Big Shots, have formed a committee that will develop a public service announcement related to gun safe storage, to safe gun storage. The committee is also collaborating to create additional media content focused on gun safety topics. Education efforts will also include a home weapons safety training conducted by LPD. This class was first offered in August to LPD employees, their families, and significant others. We will offer this instruction to the general public at a date to be determined soon. And this course will be recorded and aired on Link TV and will be available on demand on the Link City YouTube channel. Next, I'd like to ask Chief Blymeister to discuss the data that drives our decision-making and how we plan to expand and enhance the review and evaluation of our data collection efforts at the local level. Chief?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks. And once again, huge appreciation to all the task force members that spent your time and lended your expertise. And so the advanced evaluation of data builds on one of the foundational strengths of the Lincoln Police Department and relies heavily on the members of our crime analysis staff. We have a packet of information that we're going to share with you today that provides trendline analysis of the number of stolen guns annually, how many are recovered, cases where there's multiple guns were stolen, the average age of those arrested for possession of the firearms, and comprehensive data over a number of years on suicides in our community. We track the reports of weapons discharged in Lincoln, and we map those incidents. And what we do is we take that information, we evaluate it, and we make that part of our efforts to most efficiently deploy the resources that we have been given and the technology that's associated with that. And we're not only intent on identifying and apprehending that those are responsible for violent crime in our community, but most importantly, on prevention. The Lincoln Police Department is proud to be part of the process where the voices of those we serve were heard, where a multifaceted approach was developed and works in concert with all of the partners here today. And ultimately, our focus is on preventing tragedy. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Of course, we can only do so much at the local level. I have in the past and will continue to support extreme risk protection order legislation, commonly referred to as red flag laws, at the state level. And finally, I am joining a national coalition, Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which aims to advance gun safety efforts at the local, state, and national levels. This group advocates for many of the steps that we are taking today, including public education and data collection. It also advocates for policies that reduce firearm suicides, that invest in victim services and intervention programs, and that advance enforcement strategies, which ensure public safety for residents in communities disproportionately affected by gun violence. Thank you all for being here today for this announcement and to recognize the work of so many who've made these efforts possible. At this time, we'd be happy to take any questions. Riley.
What struck you most, Mayor, when you read the task force report, which touched on a lot of different areas, and do you foresee any further ordinance changes outside of the proposals before council?
Well, I think what was most striking was just what a diverse group of perspectives, people who came together and sat around a table coming at this issue from different experiences and opinions and trying to find that common ground. I think that's what we do in Lincoln, and it's not easy work, but it's important work. And I think you'll even notice that there was an effort, should red flag laws not prevail at the state, to try and find a way to work with folks who deliver important behavioral and mental health services at the local level, to work with them to try and identify folks who are a danger to themselves and others. So while it would be very difficult to implement a flag law at the local level, there was an attempt to try to figure out how we might manage should those in other bodies at other levels fail to get across the finish line. So I'm impressed with sort of the detail, the extensive review of data, the patience to move forward when different people wanted to move at different speeds. And I think most important is that everyone has the same goal in mind, which is to try to prevent violence and tragedy from occurring here in Lincoln. I think we're all eager to make some headway. Yes.
I'm concerned about the red flag laws just because of the ability to confiscate guns without knowing. And all I've heard about that is that somebody can, family member, whatever, can turn you in, and you won't know anything's happened until they show up at your door. And then you have to hire an attorney and all that to try to rectify it. And that's a real concern to me. That seems like due process backwards. So that's one of my concerns. One of the other things I was thinking about is, as I grew up, everybody knew about guns. We all were raised around them, we hunted, in smaller towns, as Lincoln was when I grew up, just people were used to them, and they didn't have, words I'm trying to think of it. They weren't afraid of them, they respected them. And kids now, all they see is what's on TV and told through movies and such, and it's skewed. Why don't you have more education in the younger kids, say in schools, grade schools and such, as they grow up? Get used to seeing something to where they know what it is. So they do respect them. That's a big portion of what I see is that young kids just don't respect them. They know nothing else. In the bigger towns, all they see is what's on the news, though. They're afraid of them. They think it's an object that's going to jump out and kill them. It's no different than a knife or anything like that. So I've wondered why we don't have an education program that gets them on their and teaches them that.
Well, part of our education program, to your point, will be available, and it's something that families can view for free on our city communications channel. But our kids are getting an education in guns that you and I never had to have. I got an alert on my phone from LPS this week. They're doing lockdown practices at Lincoln High School and across the LPS. They are getting an education in how to protect themselves and lock themselves down because of the minority of gun owners who fail to do so and whose guns are stolen and used in crimes. Many of the gun violence crimes we see across the country are with firearms that have been stolen from perfectly responsible people. So we live in a different era, and we all have to take some responsibility, but we also, I think, owe it to our children to take extra steps in a day and age when guns are far more dangerous than knives and have far more lethal power, and our kids know it, and they see it and they fear it, and they're hiding under desks at school because of it. This is the least we can do, I think. And education is an important part.
It is, but I see where you're leading towards incremental steps to.
I'm
preventing-
sorry, we're going to see if we have any other questions from the media, and then maybe you can
Okay.
chat with some folks afterwards. Is that okay?
Sure.
Chief, can I have a question, just process-wise? So when will the trigger locks be available, and is it when someone's approved for a permit?
Well, I'll let Chief take that question.
Great question, Riley. At this point, we don't have a definitive date on the delivery. We're working in conjunction with the Suicide Prevention Coalition, with the vendor to try to get those delivered as soon as possible. And I would say that they are not going to be limited to just those individuals who are applying for a handgun purchase certificate, but anyone that comes to our counter that is looking for a way to secure their firearm.
And the paying for that, is that it will be covered in the fee that they pay to get the permit, or is it a donation or a line item?
It will not be included in the fee. That's a statutorily driven cost, but I can turn it over to the Suicide Prevention Coalition if they can talk a little bit about funding.
So we are able to make the trigger locks, the gun locks, available free of charge based on a fundraiser that was done by young adults in our community and a donation from our community.
Could you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, my name is Rose Hoodbus with the Lincoln Lancaster County Suicide Prevention Coalition.
Okay, are there any other questions before we wrap? Thank you for being here today, and thanks again to all of you for your efforts and hard work on this. Thank you.